Dom and Johnny in the morning. We have a really interesting topic today that I know almost nothing about. So I'm very curious to learn. So today we're going to be exploring why our uniform is the way it is in Shaolin Kempo Karate. Because Shaolin Kempo Karate already is it's a modern hybrid style martial art that draws from traditions from China, Japan, Hawaii, and more. From my understanding, the uniform is a Japanese gi. So take it away. What's the history of our uniform?
Well, that part's the easy part.
Yeah.
So Shigeru Kano, who founded judo, he was actually the one who brought in the gi. He actually was also the one who created the belt ranking system. So as far as modern karate apparel goes, yeah, he was the founder. He did all of that.
And how long ago was that?
I don't know.
What was his name again?
Shigeru Kano.
Shigeru Kano.
Jigiro. Yeah, this is the founder of judo.
Okay, so this was... It says he was born in 1860 and passed away in 1938. So, when we're talking about, Kaju Kembo, this is in, the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, no, this is before.
This is, way before. This is, we're talking 200 years ago-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
From my understanding, they weren't even necessarily white at that point. They were just, fabric color.
Yeah.
Which was like a whitish tan, probably. And then, as things went on, karate really perfected the gi over time. It became a staple of training. So, and at least that's the origin.
Right.
Yeah. As far as we go, this gets into a lot of interesting territory, because Kempo in general, so back in Hawaii, they were rebels for donning the black gi.
Yeah.
It was not a thing. It was not. Everyone was wearing white gis, and, all of a sudden these, dudes in Hawaii, I think it was one of their mothers that was, sewing these gis for them, and they had black gis. So they were known as, thugs.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very Cobra Kai.
Yeah. So, and it was, and actually I'm going to pass you over that book that I just finished, The Black Robe. And that's why it's called The Black Robe.
Yeah.
It's because of the black gi. And in it, they're at a karate tournament, and I guess one of the karate guys says, "You thugs, show up at these tournaments with your black uniforms." And, so it's neat, and it definitely trickled down. You see it, within most of the Kempo lineages that people wear, black uniforms. So depending on which delineation of Kempo, you see, just a different kind of take on that uniform. But it is interesting how there does seem to be, kind of groups, as far as gi style goes. You have I think it's Hapkido that wears that kind of checkered, they look like diamonds.
Yeah.
Down the gi. Then you have more like the judo, jiu-jitsu gis, which are more like Shigeru Kano's traditional gi, without ties. They just folded. The belt was what held them together.
Well, and when you wear your BJJ uniform to teach, it's a heavier material. A lot of what we wear is very light. It's very light fabric, but yours is heavy, which would make sense for being able to grip and be able to throw people around. One of the downsides to learning how to fell or grapple with clothing is just it's unreliable because you never know what they're going to be wearing. So a t-shirt feels very different to hook onto an anchor than a heavier uniform.
Yeah. But I understand the point. A lot of people, to pivot to jiu-jitsu for a second, a lot of people, are big on the no-gi jiu-jitsu. So, and most jiu-jitsu schools have no-gi classes. Where you have to, there are no gi chokes. You have to do things more like Ezekiel chokes, which is, the non-gi version. But at the same time, like, most people are usually wearing something.
Yeah.
And my one of my old teachers, whose name was Jeremiah back in Fort Wayne, he was big on, he called it training for the season.
Yep.
So when it was, winter time, we were training as if people were wearing coats.
Yeah.
Which they were.
It makes sense.
You could do some really nice gi chokes with coats.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the summer, it's more like t-shirts, and t-shirts can rip, but you can also choke someone out with a t-shirt pretty easily.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And I'd rather wear the gi because I don't want to, rip my clothes every time I come to class.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just interesting because Fred Villari, in his last clinic before he passed, which my sister and I were at, one of the things that I thought was really interesting is he kept talking about how a lot of, especially as you get higher in rank, because, curriculum-wise, it's like categorized as Shaolin. He was talking about how a lot of people get distracted by the Shaolin elements and forget about the karate and kempo that support it. So he was really big on making sure that you tap back into like the simpler karate movements and, remembering kempo. And he, part of me learning about Kaju Kenbo makes me wonder if he was talking about Kaju Kenbo just obliquely by just generally saying kempo. But he was talking about how aggressive kempo fighters are and how, they would wear the black as an intimidation thing. He seemed to speak with at least a knowing respect of that side of the martial arts world. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and Master Raposa says all the time, that's not our kempo.
Yeah.
And he makes a very valid point because Master Villari, even though he did learn, from Nick Serio, how he transformed that material is just on a completely different level. It's just different, and not saying anything bad about the Serio guys or the Kaju Kenpo guys because they're all incredible. But it is, Master Villari definitely took a different take on the material.
Yeah.
Which was very, very unique and expanded upon it. Just with his, massive knowledge base, of all these different martial arts he's studied. But yeah, they are, the guys in Hawaii were aggressive.
Yeah.
Very aggressive, and they were feared. If you were a Kaju Kenpo student, people knew. They were like, oh, don't mess with that dude. Yeah.
Yeah. So to go back to Jigoro Kano for a moment, because, you said he was the first one to introduce the uniform. That's like the origin. But also the rank system.
Yeah.
So it looks like from Wikipedia, the most reliable source. So it looks like he was the first one to really use black and white belts. Mm-hmm. And so, clarify if I'm mistaken, but, for him, black really just meant the teacher and white just meant the student, right? Or am I mistaken?
I mean, he did introduce like the color belts too.
Yeah.
So it was, now I'm kind of second guessing myself, but I'm pretty sure that you wore white until you were deemed, ready to wear black,
Yeah. So, actually, there's an interesting, where do because I've seen a few different things about where the different colors go, like why it goes from like white to yellow or whatever. There's the legend where, you would, like, basically it would get dirty like a white t-shirt with the more effort that you put in and it would eventually blacken. It's the counter argument I've seen is that Japanese society is very clean. They would not tolerate that level of filth, on your attire.
Yeah. And actually, this is a nice little public service announcement for all of our students out there. Wash your belts.
Yep.
Wash your belts. I know a lot of people. I've heard people in the past, be like, this is quite the tangent, but But I've heard people in the past, be like, I've never washed my belt. We're talking about black belts that have had their belts for years.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you really should. If you wash your uniform, you should wash your belt.
Yeah.
They both carry the same mat-borne bacteria, so.
Yeah. So it looks like this is a quick Google search. He was the first to do white for students, black for teachers, or people who are just good. And then karate and taekwondo really went into the breakdown of individual ranks, meaning individual things. Again, this might be myth, but I briefly researched this at some point, and I actually think it comes from France. Because hey, you know how you mentioned Savate is a French kicking art, and that kind of made its way to karate. Well, in France, they knew that the European mind wanted a more tactile symbol of progression, and that's where they would get belt dyes, and that would actually become part of the promotion ceremony, is getting to dye a white belt a new color.
Interesting.
And in general, the colors tended toward getting darker, but in our style, it goes white, yellow, orange, so getting darker. But then purple is a huge leap,
dark,
and then it goes back to blue, green. It starts going one way in the color spectrum, and then kind of flips over to the other. Although I guess if you skip red, no, that's maybe that would work. Yeah, yellow, orange, red, purple. If you're going in that direction. You're just kind of going in rainbow order minus the red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu does the opposite. The blue and the purple are flipped.
Yeah. So I don't know, but it is an interesting just kind of, thought.
Mm-hmm.
So the color uniforms also mean different things. And this is always interesting because one of the things we've been collecting are older footage of masters from our style from 20, 30 years ago, either at seminars or just doing educational footage. And the different uniform colors I always find really interesting.
The blue and red America uniform.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. Yeah.
So at least from our school, and again, every school I've been finding is different. Usually we start white and white, so white top, white pants. For our 5 and 6 year olds, we actually let them wear a t-shirt with their white pants. In the summertime, our students are allowed to wear a uniform t-shirt, so it's not anything random, but it's just different colors they can order with pants in their belt. And then when they get to blue belt, so they go white, yellow, orange, purple, blue, they have an option of committing to the Black Belt Club, which is where they get their blue uniform, so blue top, blue pants. And really, our Black Belt Club is just, it's not an extra cost to their training, but it's basically, the way I look at it is they have developed their character enough that I can trust them with the additional things, and the more committed they are to earning their black belt, the more committed we are as instructors to, giving them additional tools to make their life more fulfilling. So, weapons training. I don't want to put a weapon in a yellow belt's hand. I want to make sure that they're going to be responsible first and committed enough through blue belt, which, kind of can take 9 months to a year, before they get to swing a stick around. And then leadership is the other part, which is where they get to dip their toes into what it's like being an instructor and a role model in their classes. And then pretty much those are the only two uniforms, is you've got white and you've got blue until you hit black belt, and that's where you get the Kempo black key, which looks very sharp. And that's kind of the normal progression for most students. Yeah.
Yeah, which is different than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was purple belt, where you were able to don the black uniform.
Yep.
And that was that was the same in Parker's system too. Purple belt was that it was either orange or purple that you were allowed to swap to the black uniform.
Yeah.
Which may be wrong depending on the school, but the school that my brother trained at, that's how they did it. So.
Yeah, and I mean, again, this was a recent switch we made. Mostly because the black gi looks really good with a black belt.
Sure does.
Purely aesthetic. And it was always like, when a student reached purple, it was weird to be like, well, you could get a black gi, but if you wait just a few more weeks and you test for blue belt, you get another new gi. So, it seemed like it was a path of less resistance to just move the black gi to black belt. And then with our students, when they test for black belt, their black gi is kind of rolled into the package. Now, we do wear different uniforms depending on if someone is an instructor. So the first step to our instructor training pathway is Storm Team, our student team of role models. And really that's just a student who wants to test out what it's like being a higher rank in a lower ranking class. They wear their normal uniform. They wear the blue. They do have to wear their full uniform. So now in the summertime, even though the students are mostly wearing t-shirts, they have to come in with their gi top on because they're official. But they do a little bit of Storm, and then at age 12, they can become a level 1 instructor. That's where they're blue and blue, but they have that instructor belt, which is white with a black stripe through it, unless they're a black belt, and then they can just wear their black belt. And then level 2 is they wear their normal rank again. They don't wear their instructor belt, but it's a blue top with white pants, which is what a lot of people, like, just instructing I've seen at, like, events and stuff. They just like that color combo. Mm-hmm. But that's usually a level 2 instructor, which means that they're at least 14 and they've done enough that we can trust them to make refining corrections to students. Remember your elbow position, bend your knees, pay attention, like all those good little reminders. And then level 3 is like you are skilled enough that we can trust you with teaching students like new parts of forms or new combinations. And that's a flip. That's a white top with blue pants. And then the kind of highest level is, level 4 certified instructor, white top and black pants. And pretty much at 3rd degree, you're allowed to split your gi as well. So I know when one of our instructors, Will, when he competes, he likes the blue top with the black pants. But then the only other changes are rank specific. So 4th degree is a white top with red pants. And then mastery is a red top. And then you can wear whatever color pants you want. I see a lot of, from like the people who have been around a while, I see a lot of red top, white pants. I kind of like the red top, black pants myself. But I think those are our uniforms. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. It's like, you can wear red, but you could also wear whatever you want.
Yeah.
The official would be the red top, black bottoms for, like, events.
Yeah. I know Master Bob a lot of times. He's got this black gi top, but it's got, like, red, white, and blue, like, a stripe down the seam, and he wears blue pants with it. It's very American.
I like training in black, and if I could, I would teach in black. I love being monochromatic. That's always been my jam. So, the doofy red pants, I wear them.
Yeah. Well, they've kind of grown on you, though. You used to be like, I'm never going to wear them. And then one time you did, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I drank the Kool-Aid.
Spilled them on your pants.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
The clown pants. I joke with my students all the time because they'll ask me about it, and they'll say, why are your pants red? Like, oh, my teacher makes me wear clown pants.
Yeah. No, I do. I never minded the red pants. I definitely like the red top. I don't know why. There's just an aura about it, like I'm glowing. And the one function of having the split gi is that it does make it easier, especially for, like, inquiry purposes, to point out who the instructors in charge are. Yeah. It's especially when you have a white top and some kind of colored pants, it's really easy to point you out. The red is just an eye-catching color, so yeah.
It certainly is. And if I think, maybe 15 years ago, I would have said that, like, the karate stylists, we probably are the most fashion heavy
Yeah.
gi wearers in martial arts. But I feel like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu took the cake with that. Man, they have got the crazy uniforms
Yeah.
that you can get in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now are out of this world. In every color you can imagine, with every theme you can imagine.
Yeah.
Like the insides of the uniform that you don't even see are absolutely stunning. Like sewed in silk graphics and stuff from your favorite anime to
That's awesome.
It is insane. My school is very my new school now is very traditional. So we all wear the same color uniform, and we actually all wear the same thing underneath our uniform. So we all wear the same rash guard.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, looks pretty sharp.
Yeah.
Because my last school, everyone wore whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
But this one, everyone's in the same exact uniform, and it does look very sharp. So.
Well, that might be a way to answer this next question, but I think it is a good question to ask, which is why require wearing a uniform? So, because there have been plenty of times, I've gone into a martial arts thing and everyone's just kind of wearing whatever. Some people have gi pants, some people, are just wearing like sweatpants and a t-shirt, like regardless of age, rank, whatever, people are just wearing what they're wearing. So what are kind of like the pros, cons of each approach? Because I don't think one is wrong, but it does like have an effect on the culture of your school and the culture of your class.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think even Master Valari, I think he was split on this because he always wore a uniform.
Yeah.
However, there are actual schools, that have polo tops.
Yep.
Because it, per his view, people didn't want to wear the gis anymore. And he didn't care. He's, well, people don't want to wear the gis. Why wear the gi? I think that is a nice connection to history. I think, it's, and I do think it has a lot of function too. As far as even just the grossness that you get in like a really sweaty class.
Yeah.
Is usually underneath the gi.
Yeah.
And what you're touching is usually like a lot less gross than like their shirt. And like we said before, even if you're grappling, grappling in a t-shirt, you're going to rip the shirt,
Yeah.
So, which throws, any sort of modesty out the door,
Yeah.
So, having a nice gi top, I think it looks sharp. It gives you that kind of connection to the past. I think it makes you feel like you're all in it together.
Yep.
Which is important too. So, when you look around, everyone's wearing the same thing. It's kind of cool.
It's just these things do matter psychologically. It does. It's a reminder that you fit. That you found a place that you belong. I think for kids especially, we found this during COVID. The term that came up that I really liked is it's a performance trigger. So kind of like, when the theater gets hyped because a superhero gets their comic accurate costume, it's like the same kind of thing where there is a different level of attention you take when you don a uniform. So I definitely, especially for kids, I think the uniform is a powerful thing. I also think it's a powerful thing to have a new student not wearing a uniform to start. Like, they just come in wearing PE clothes. But when they and their parents make the decision to continue and they enter their first class with a uniform, there's a transition that happens, kind of like the Power Rangers losing their first fight. And then morphin' time, right? And then suddenly they're like, they've entered a special world. So I do think that having a uniform, there's a lot of benefits to it. And I also disagree that adults think it's silly. I think that, especially with our adults right now, and I'm speaking very anecdotally, this is not a sweeping generalization, just most of them are parents of children who also train. So the uniform is also a way that they can connect with their kids, and that they just, have this thing that both of them can share in their own ways. But it creates a stronger trust connection, even though it seems like a silly thing because it's just an outfit.
Yeah.
It is. I do think that it has that purpose as well.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, if you're gonna fight, it's probably not gonna be with a uniform unless it's a tournament. So if it's a self-defense situation, I think that there is a lot of value in learning how your art works in different clothing. I know Ken, I think he still does this, but I know he used to. When he'd go to try on jeans, he would try to throw head height front kicks, and if the jeans were too restrictive, he wouldn't buy them. It is good to learn if you're in different outfits. What's the range of motion? How does that change? What becomes unavailable from your art, or what becomes more available? Like you said, in wintertime, if you're wearing a heavy coat, it's easier to get choked out wearing that. So, I think that they're at least some of the time not having a uniform on to train. I think there's some like practical benefits to it.
Yeah, and I think it's just good to train outside in your street clothes too sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I always train barefoot in the dojo.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I always get some side eyes, even at this last clinic. I think I was the only one that was barefoot.
Yeah.
Everyone else is in shoes. And I do train outside in shoes, but when I'm on the mats, I like the feeling on my toes.
Yeah, Ken actually read an article, I don't remember how long ago, where they were basically researching that just in general, our Achilles tendons are getting weaker because it's kind of like if you sprain a joint and you wear a brace, but you wear a brace all the time, your body gets used to the brace being there to protect it. In the same way, the way that we wear shoes everywhere makes it so our Achilles tendon doesn't have to be as strong. Whereas if you're a martial artist and you're training barefoot a lot, you're waking up that Achilles tendon and asking it to do its job. So there are functional benefits to being barefoot while training at least a good amount of the time.
Yeah, and I think it also brings a little like a wake-up call to your kicks.
Yeah.
Because if you throw a roundhouse kick, anyone who's listening, if you've ever caught it at like that far edge of your foot,
Yep.
like the last like 3 to 4 inches, and you felt that little sharp, pinch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you forget that because we get spoiled sometimes with shoes when we train in shoes because of that extra structure. But if you hit something hard enough, even in shoes, you're gonna get that same pinch.
Yep.
So it's better to figure it out barefoot, when you're not putting as much, when you're not in a real fight.
Yeah, and again, I think Fred Villari, you can add names if they come to mind, but Fred Villari was one of, if not the first, to advocate for training in shoes. Because again, if you're going to need to defend yourself, chances are you're not going to be barefoot. You're going to be wearing shoes. So it's good to train barefoot to strengthen everything and to figure out all your mechanics. But wearing shoes, at least some of the time, to train will give you a more realistic sense of what you can do and how it'll work.
Mm-hmm.
Dom and Johnny in the morning.